Sandy with Old Time Patterns, and this video is one of a series on making historical garments, and this particular video is part one of 2 parts for how to make an 18th century skirt, and it's going to cover taking your measurements and making a pattern for your skirt. And the next video following this one is going to show you the construction of the actual skirt. So let's get started. Okay, today's video is going to be about making an 18th century skirt or petticoat. I'm actually going to do this in 2 different ways. I'm going to do one without the bum pad that I just made in the last video, and I'm going to do one with the bum pad that I made in the last video. The reason for this is I have one 18th century outfit that is a working farm type outfit, and it needs as little underpinnings as possible. And the second outfit that I'm going to be making is a going to town outfit, and it's still a country going to town outfit, so it's not going to be fancy. It's going to be just a caraco and a petticoat, not a fancy dress. So that's what I'm working on, and I do not have a pattern for making an 18th century skirt. So I'm going to be making the pattern first, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, first I need to take some measurements. So I'm going to put my bum pad on and have my husband help me take some measurements here, because you have to measure down the back, from the back of the waist down to the floor. So I'll get this on here real quick. And okay, so you're going to measure from the front of the waist down to the floor, all the way to the floor. Just makes it easier that way. And then you're going to measure the side of the waist all the way down to the floor. And of course it's going over the bum pad. And then you're going to measure the center of the back down to the floor. So I'm going to get those measurements, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've got my measurements, and I thought this was really interesting. With the bum pad, my measurement in the front to the floor was 43, on the side was 45, and then the back was 47. So there was 2 inches between each measurement. I just was curious to note that. Without the bum pad, of course the front measurement's the same because there is no bum pad in the front. It's 43. And the side was 43.5, and the back was 44. So only a ½ inch between each of the 3 measurements. So I'm going to start off by making the straight lines on the side, and I'm using newsprint paper. And just so you know, I get this in a bundle at Walmart. I think it's like a bundle of 50 sheets, and they sell it in the shipping section, and it makes really good pattern material, this newsprint paper. And it is actually 24 inches square. Each sheet is 24 inches square. And I'm going to make the width of this pattern 22 inches. So if needed, I could do this on a quilting fabric that is a 44 or 45 inch quilting fabric. So I'm going to make the 2 straight lines on the sides. Again, I'm going to make this 22 inches wide, so I'm just using my ruler to go in 1 inch. And then I'm going to do the line on the other side. Okay, and then I'm going to do a line for the bottom. Actually, I'm going to do it on the other end because that end has been cut already when I piece them together, and this end has not been cut, so I'm going to use this one as the bottom. Okay, so there's the bottom of the skirt. And this is actually pretty simple. This is going to be the back, and this is going to be the side. So I'm going to measure the 47 inches for the back. There's 36. So I need 11 more inches. Okay, there's the 47. And 43 for the front, or 45 for the side. Gonna measure that one next. I need 9 more inches there. And then I'm going to draw a line in between the two. Okay, so this is the side, and this is the back. And if we cut this on the fold, then that will give you one panel to cover the entire back side of the dress. Okay, and I'm also going to mark on this the other measurement for the other skirt, which is 44 in the back. So there's 44 in the back, and then 43 and a half in the front. And draw a line in between those two measurements. So I'm going to mark this without bum pad and with bum pad. And then depending on which one I'm cutting out at the time, I can just fold the pattern at that line, not have to cut this part off. And I've got one pattern that can handle both situations. Okay, same thing with this one. I'm going to mark off 1 inch on each side. And 1 inch at the bottom. My side measurement with the bum pad was 45. And without the bum pad was 43 and a half. And my front measurement is 43 for both of them. There's the one without the bum pad. And here's the line with the bum pad. And so again, I can just fold it over depending on which one I'm making. So I'm going to label this front. And then we're cutting on on the fold. So when you fold it out, you've got the entire front panel. And this I'm going to label side. Without bum pad. With bum pad. Okay. The other thing, oops, bum pad or skirt pattern. What did I label the other one? No. I labeled that bum pad back panel, skirt pattern, front panel. Today's date. Okay, so we still have the issue. The measurements that I made were from my waist all the way to the floor. We do need to add in just a little bit. I think I'm going to do a separate waistband. So we only need just a seam allowance at the top to go into the waistband. So that's a 1/2 inch. And we need about 2 inches for the hem at the bottom of the skirt. So that's 2.5 inches total that's going to be folded in. This skirt actually should be about 6 inches off the floor when it's completed. So I'm already taking out 2.5 inches with the part that's going to be folded over. 2.5. Yeah, 2 inch hem. 2.5 inches that's going to be folded over and used as a seam allowance on both of these. So I need to take out another 3.5 inches at the bottom to allow for it being the full 6 inches off the ground when it's completed. So I'm going to mark that 3.5 inches here. So there's our new bottom measurement, and a note that it allows a 2 inch hem. And then I'm going to do the same for the other piece. And take off that same 3.5 inches. Make a note. Alrighty, then I've got all my cutting lines ready. I'm going to go ahead and cut these patterns out. The reason I'm making patterns, I really would rather have a pattern for everything that I do rather than just marking lines on my fabric with the measurements. It's just easier and faster. I mean, these are done and I'll have these forever or until the paper wears out, whichever comes first. But if I ever wanted to make another skirt again in the future, I can just pull these patterns out and get started. I don't have to take my measurements and draw out the lines, and it's just a time saver for future projects. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these patterns out. Okay, I got the main skirt panel pieces cut out from the patterns cut out, and I need to make a waistband. So the waistband, I want to make it 1 inch thick, and it's going to fold over. So I need the 1 inch on the front and the 1 inch that's folded over, and then a 1/2 inch on each side for the seam allowance. So it needs to be 3 inches wide. So I got this scrap fabric. I'm going to go ahead and mark the 3 inches on that. Scrap fabric, scrap paper. Okay, and you need to take a measurement of your waist, and I happen to know that mine's 36 inches. So you divide that in half because you're going to have 2 waistband pieces. So it will be 18 inches on the front and 18 inches on the back. And you also need a half-inch seam allowance on both sides. So you want these pieces to be 19 inches wide. Okay, so I'm going to mark that line, and label in my pattern, and I'm going to cut this out for the 19 inches wide by 3 inches deep. Okay, I've got my waistband pattern cut out, and I marked it to cut 2, so you got one for the front and one for the back. And I told you I was going to tell you, if you want to expand on this skirt to make it wider, a bigger circumference on the bottom for a fancier dress or a ball gown, it's real easy. You would just take this pattern, fold it in half, exactly in half, and then cut it on the fold. I'm not going to do this because I don't want to ruin this pattern right at the moment. Cut it on the fold, and then you can either do it on your fashion fabric, directly on your fashion fabric, or you can add paper in the middle. Just mark off the additional space that you want, like another foot or 2 feet. Some people do them pretty wide. So you'd measure it a foot here and a foot here, space the 2 pattern pieces apart, and then just draw a new line from your side to your back that covers the entire new distance that you have to cover. And you would do that both. Make sure you add the same amount on the front panel as you do on the back panel. Thanks so much for joining me. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button, and I would love to hear your comments, questions, and suggestions down below. Please also consider subscribing to my channel, and if you click on the bell next to the subscribe button, you'll be notified when new videos come out. Thanks so much for joining me, and happy sewing!